Hi again, everyone. As we wrap up an amazing 2020 NILA conference, I want to thank each and every one of you, more than 900 ship leaders, for taking part in this unprecedented event. Part of me wants to feel surprised that we could generate 5 times the turnout of last year's NILA conference in the middle of a pandemic. But you know what? I'm not surprised. This is what SHIP has always done, risen to the occasion on one towering mountain at a time. Speaking of mountains, I want to share a parable with you, a story. One I think is relevant to where we stand at this moment in SHIP's history. Here goes. There's a mountain outside a village that no one has ever climbed, though many have tried and failed. And one day, a young climber announces to the village that she intends to conquer the summit. She spends months preparing, training rigorously every day. She seeks advice from the village elders who warn her of the many mountain's hidden dangers. Finally, she's ready for the climb. And a few weeks later, she returns, bringing a handful of crystals which only exist at the mountain's summit. When the villagers see the crystals, they know she's done the impossible. The climber immediately becomes a hero of the village. And before long, she hears about another mountain. This one is higher and more arduous than the first. So she knows she needs to climb it. There's just one catch. The mountain sits on the other side of a vast ocean. So undeterred, the climber gathers her things, hops in a canoe, and then sets off for the next mountain. Only she has no idea how to navigate the seas. Not long after she sets out, a storm blows in and the climber disappears. So what's the lesson here? Even though the climber had what it took to climb those first mountains, she made the mistake of assuming that those skills would help her conquer an entirely different challenge. In other words, the skills that got you where you are aren't necessarily the skills that will take you where you need to go. So before coming to SHIP, I was a trial lawyer, a litigator, and then a general counsel, and ultimately a chief legal officer. And those experiences and the skills I acquired along the way were no doubt invaluable. But to be and serve as SHIP's CEO, I needed to level up. I needed to pivot. In order to be a part of something bigger, the just cause that SHIP represents, SHIP's mission, I needed to transcend my own personal limitations, especially as a leader. And I'd like to think that I'm doing that. No doubt, it's a work in progress, and I'm a work in progress. But the progress I have made, I couldn't have achieved it without my team and my board, and certainly not without all of you. You, my SHIP familia, have helped me in my journey. And just as you've helped one another this weekend, whether you realize it or not. The things you've learned at this conference are part of your own personal transformation and personal transcendence. You too are learning what it means to level up and to be a part of something greater than yourself. For SHIP, the current crisis, the pandemic, the social unrest, the national policies negatively impacting our Hispanic community, this is that big ocean in front of us, like in the parable. It's the great divide we must cross before we get to that next mountain, our new reality, both for the personal and the collective. This crossing requires a totally different skill. And that's what you've been doing throughout the crisis, as well as in these past few days. Learning new information, acquiring new skills, making new connections, and reimagining what it means to be a leader. You've equipped your tool belt, your leadership tool belt, but your learning, transformation, and personal transcendence can't stop here. Because being a leader, being that proverbial mountain climber and ocean navigator, requires continuous lifelong learning. It means never assuming that your personal and professional challenges ahead and the strategies and the solutions needed to address them will be the same as the ones in the past. The same lesson applies to SHPE as an organization. And during the past few years, we've climbed mountain after mountain. 13,000 plus members, 9,000 plus convention attendees, new and dynamic programming, greater and more meaningful engagement, and on and on. It's been a climb. It's been a challenge. And now we're setting our sights on the next peak, the next summit. 2,000 more members by 2022, 75 new chapters across the country, and even more cutting edge programming and services and resources. But we can't reach these new and subsequent summits without first accounting for the massive ocean in front of us, this crisis we find ourselves in. How do we show people the power and purpose of our organization through entirely virtual means? How do we bring more people into the fold when such a huge part of our culture is being together in chapter meetings, at RLDCs, at our national convention? The current crisis is our ocean. The global pandemic, national social unrest, persistent and pervasive socioeconomic disparities. How do we successfully navigate and cross it together? By learning new skills as individuals, as an organization, things like SHPE national programs and our virtual events, like raising close to $1 million for programs and scholarships and COVID relief, and effectively communicating, advocating, and influencing with one voice. The tremendous power and infinite and pure potential that we Hispanics possess. We will make it to the other side, I have no doubt. We will navigate this socio-political crisis. After all, when you're crossing an ocean, a ship, and this ship is way better than a canoe, and it's way better than going at it alone. We've ascended many mountains. We've taken in the views. We've stayed and trained for the next big climb. We've developed new and critical skills. Now it's time to make our way to that next cloud-piercing peak. The ocean will be treacherous, the terrain on the other side, unlike any we've ever encountered. But that's the great thing about having so many emerging leaders like you. Depending on the challenge, everyone will have an opportunity to step up and show us the way ahead. That's how we transcend together as an organization and as a collective Hispanic community. You are all more effective leaders than you were when this conference started. Now it's time to show the world. Now it's time to take the skills you've learned and use them to guide you and your chapters and your regions and our organization as a whole to move it forward, upward, onward to a whole nother stratosphere. Now it's time to write the next chapter in SHPE's history, one that ends yet on another summit of success. Thank you. Mil gracias. God bless. Namaste. And I look forward to seeing all of you at SHPE's National Convention 2020.